You can take a very inexpensive cut of meat called round steak and make a delicious dinner. And this is Swiss steak that I did in the pressure cooker. But guess what? I also made the garlic smashed potatoes and the side of carrots at the same time. Let me show you how I did it. Welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today's recipe is super easy to make and it's very economical. This is a great family meal and it's just so easy to make. So Swiss steak, that's what we're making. And we're gonna make it with smashed garlic, potatoes, and some carrots. So it's a full meal all in one pot and it's gonna be ready in under 45 minutes. All right, so what I have here is round steak, and I recommend using round steak for this recipe because it's one of those recipes where you can get the less expensive cut of beef and it turns out beautifully. So one question you may have is, what is Swiss steak anyway? Is it a dish from Switzerland? And it is not. Swissing is a term in the textile industry that means to pound, hammer, or roll between rollers to flatten something out. But in the culinary world, when we talk about Swissing, it's to pound out our meat. So that could be this steak. And that's where Swiss steak gets its name from. That's the first thing that I'm gonna show you how to do. However, because we're pressure cooking, you can skip this step, okay? And still call it Swiss steak. It's going to be just fine. But because Swissing, Swiss steak, I'm gonna go ahead and pound it out. So what I'm gonna do is use this parchment paper, and I'll do 2 at a time. And I'm not gonna pound them for that long because like I said, the pressure cook really does tenderize. So it's really fine to skip this step. Now, I have a meat tenderizer, so I've got something that's got all these little points on it, and I'm gonna use that to go into the meat. But if you just had a flat mallet or something like that, then just close up your parchment and do it like that. But because I want these little hole pokers to go in to the meat, I'm gonna leave this part off. Then just go in and pound it out. You could flip it over if you wanted, it'd be perfectly fine. All right, so there we go. That's a nice pound for this. So I probably took it from 1/4 of an inch down just like by 1/8 of an inch. You don't want it too thin. All right, that worked perfectly. Now, while I do the rest of those the exact same way, I'm gonna go ahead and get the Ninja Foodi heated up on sear saute with about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So we're gonna go ahead and turn the sear saute on. High is what we want. Hit start. You can let the pot heat up for about 5 minutes and then put in your oil, or you could take the shortcut. Just go ahead and put in your 2 tablespoons and let it all heat up. Now what we want to do is get these dredged in a flour because we do want a nice gravy. It's a tomato gravy that is traditional with a Swiss steak. So we do want to start this off by dredging it through a flour mixture. And I already have that made up here, so let me go over what's in this container. It is 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of sea salt, 1/2 of a teaspoon of black pepper, 1/2 of a teaspoon of onion powder, and 1/2 of a teaspoon of garlic powder, and that is it. You can add more seasonings if you like, change the seasonings up. If you're a fan of black pepper, double it, it'll be perfectly delicious. All right, so once you have all of your steaks pounded out, if you decide to do that, then dredge them through this flour, and it's very light dredge. You don't need a lot. Just, flip it over a couple of times and let the flour coat each side. Now, I did not trim these up. If you wanted to take off some of the fat around the edges, you certainly could, but it does help keep the meat a little bit moister during pressure cooking and just gives so much flavor. All right, now we're gonna put that in and just let that sit and do that for the rest of them. We will brown up the one side, which will take about 3 minutes or so, and then we will brown up the other side. You can add more oil if you need to. So if you are finding that all your oil is being absorbed by the flour, just go ahead and add a little bit more, but wait for it to heat up before you put your steak in. All right, looks like I'll get about 3 of these done at a time, and then I'll have to pull them out, but that's no big deal. Now we'll put everything back in and get our meal assembled and start to pressure cook. It's that easy. The other thing you could do is you could put your flour mixture in a bag, your seasoned flour, and just toss these in a bag if you want. That's perfectly fine. All right, let's see if I can squeeze this last one in here. I think I can. Yeah, that'll be good. Let's see. That looks good. I'm gonna flip that one over. All right, so once all of the steak is browned on both sides, if you're only doing like 4, okay, if you're gonna cut the recipe down a little bit, you don't have to take it out. But because I had to do it in batches, I just took it all out so I could show you how we wanted to glaze the pot. So nothing's really stuck on, but there is some flour in here that came off of the dredged meat. So I wanna go ahead and pour in a 1/4 cup of beef stock and sort of go around the bottom and let that flour combine with this beef stock. Now it's not enough to make it thick, so we're gonna be fine to go under pressure. We're also gonna add in 1 can of fire roasted tomatoes, which is 14.5 ounces. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that in right now. Now this is not the time where you wanna say, oh, I better peel my carrots and get everything else ready, because you will evaporate too much of the liquid, whether you stay on sear saute or even turn the foodie off because the pot's hot. So keep rolling with the recipe at this point. If you absolutely have to, turn the pot off and take the inner pot out, okay, if you need to prep some more. But my recommendations are always to prep everything and get it ready so that we can start just adding in ingredients. Now we're gonna go ahead and add in 1 sliced onion. I'm using a sweet onion, but you could use any kind of onion. You could skip the onion, that's perfectly fine. I'm gonna put in 2 carrots. Now these are quite thick, but it makes no difference what size your carrots are because we're going under pressure long enough that the carrots are really going to almost disintegrate. So these are not the carrots that I'm gonna serve on the side. These are the carrots that go with the sauce. They help to flavor it, and it's just traditional to see a little bit of carrot pieces throughout your Swiss steak sauce. Okay, so we're gonna put those in. Oh, you know what? I gotta get the meat back in. Do that first, guys, okay? Get that in. You want that down at the bottom of the pot because you want it to be in the liquid. So I'll just move things around and get this done here. And then there's 2 other ingredients that I add that are liquid ingredients. One is 1 tablespoon of red wine vinegar. The reason why I do that is because it does help to tenderize the meat, and it also brings in a little bit of an acid into the dish, which really balances it well. Now you could use white wine vinegar, you could use apple cider vinegar, but I chose red wine. I think it goes well with this dish. And then 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. And just get your steak as far down as you can. You're probably gonna have to move it to the middle because we need to get the rack in. And that is because we are going to put potatoes and garlic on top so that we can make our smashed potatoes, or at least start the cooking process right now. And instead of taking the time to roast the garlic, which you absolutely can if you want, what I do is just take the top off, keep the paper on. And I need to do this pretty quickly because you can hear the liquid is really boiling. I don't want to go too long. Now we're kind of high in the pot, so we're gonna see if I can get this down in there. Yeah, it's gonna be just fine. Even if these are a little bit above the pot, the pressure lid, the design of it is gonna be just fine for this to go on. So then throw on your garlic and throw in your washed potatoes. This is about 1.5 pounds. You could do as many as will fit on this rack, no problem. And I have a combination of russet and Yukon Gold, and that is just my preference. All right, put the pressure lid on. Now we want to go to the pressure. High is the temperature we want. Our time is going to be 14 minutes, and you're going to hit start. Make sure you turn the valve in the back to the sealed position. We do want to put the pot under pressure, and that is all we need to do right now. So now is the time that you can prep the rest of your carrots if you didn't do so beforehand, because in addition to having some nice garlic smashed potatoes, I'm going to add some carrots in so that I do the entire meal at one time. Now, you don't have to do it this way. You don't have to put the potatoes on top. You don't have to use the garlic. If you just want to use the potatoes, that's perfectly fine. So you can adjust this any which way you want. You can just make the Swiss steak in the bottom, but if you do that, you're gonna increase your time to about 25 minutes with a 10-minute natural release, okay? But we are going to interrupt this after the 14 minutes to put these carrots on so that they don't cook too long and they don't disintegrate, okay? When the 14 minutes of pressure cook time is up, do an immediate release. Yes, there's meat in the bottom, but don't worry about it. It's not gonna dry out or anything like that because it's submerged in liquid. And we're not gonna disturb it at this point. All we're doing is opening up the lid to add these carrots in, and then we're gonna go back under pressure. All right, the pin is dropped. Now I can open the lid, do that away from you so that that steam does not come up into your face. It's going to be very, very steamy. And now we're just gonna throw our carrots right on top here. Put the lid back on. Make sure the valve is back to the sealed position. And we are gonna go back under pressure. And our time is 7 minutes, and hit start. Now, if you weren't gonna be doing the potatoes and the carrots and things like that, like I said earlier, just change that first time to about 25 minutes, do a 10-minute natural release, and then you can release the remaining pressure and then thicken up your gravy that's down with your round steak and finish off your dish. But if you wanted to do it with the carrots and the potatoes, you wanna interrupt the pressure cook time. So the timing of 14 minutes and then 7 minutes works out perfectly fine. It's going to take no time at all to come to pressure. So probably, 3 minutes or so since the pot is super hot. And then we'll go under pressure for the 7 minutes and do a 10-minute natural release. And then we'll finish up our dish by thickening it up, which I'm gonna thicken it up with tomato paste, but I'll let you know some other options that you can use if you didn't wanna add that in. And then smash up our garlic potatoes, and then we will serve our meal. All right, the pin dropped. We can go ahead and open up the lid. Make sure you do that away from you because it's going to be very steamy. All right, and now we're gonna get out these carrots. Now, the carrots are a little softer than they have been in the past, and I think that's because even though the second time to pressure was only took 3 minutes, it took several more minutes before the countdown started. So what you could do, actually I'm gonna put these over here. So what you could do, if you notice that your second time to pressure is taking too long, just cut down your time a little bit so you don't have to go the whole 7 minutes that we just did. You can knock it down to 5 or even 4. I do recommend keeping the natural release the same because if you go lower on the natural release, you're gonna probably end up having some juices kind of spew out because there are some juices down here. As you can see, they're actually over the rack a little bit. We've got to put our potatoes into the bowl to get smashed with the garlic. So I'll also take this garlic out right here, finish getting these carrots out. Then we're gonna thicken our sauce. You can do that several different ways. You could make a cornstarch slurry, which means that you would just mix together maybe 1 to 2 tablespoons of cornstarch with a little bit of cold water and then pour it in and use the sear saute. Or you can do, oops, losing a carrot. Or you can do what I'm gonna do, which is use tomato paste because, you know, it's tomato-based sauce. I thought that would go nicely with it. The other thing you could do, like if you make up roux ahead of time, which is equal parts fat and flour, usually I use butter, but any fat would work fine. You could also put that in and use that, it's no problem. So, all right, so let's go ahead and move everything around. Oh my gosh, it looks amazing. It looks so good, but you can see it's a little bit thin. It smells so good. So I'm gonna start off with 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. And just kind of stir it in. We can turn it on sear saute for a little bit. That's not gonna hurt anything while we mash up our potatoes. So let's go ahead and do that and stir this in and just let's see if that thickens the sauce enough. If not, we can add some more. It's no problem whatsoever. Oh my gosh, this looks so good. Now I'm breaking up these carrots because like I said, it is kind of traditional to have those kind of like broken up a little bit in the sauce itself. If you like really soft carrots and you like them really small, then you can put them all in with, you know, down in the bottom. You don't have to do that double pressure cook time like I did. You know, stop it and put those carrots in. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. All right, so let's go ahead and get this, just let it sit here for a minute and thicken up. Then we can determine if we want to add in more. Meantime, I hope I have a big enough bowl for this. I'm gonna go ahead and start to just go through my potatoes. We're gonna put in about 3 tablespoons of butter. Of course, you can put in as little or as much as you like. We're gonna use some salt and pepper, and we're gonna put this whole bulb of garlic. Now, I don't want you to freak out about this whole bulb of garlic because it has been cooked and it is not gonna be real pungent, so you can certainly just squeeze in the entire bulb. It's not exactly the same as roasted garlic, but pretty darn close. And you don't want to get any of the paper there at all. Let me squeeze it in. That's boiling away there, but that's gonna reduce the amount of liquid too. So I'm just gonna let it keep going. All right, there we go. Our garlic is in. Now I'm gonna put in our butter and let that start to melt there. I'm also gonna add in some salt and pepper. I recommend that you do this to taste. Really, there's no right or wrong of how much seasoning you put. Probably, for me, this is 1.5 pounds of potatoes, putting in probably about 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and I'll probably put in about 1 teaspoon of fine grind sea salt. And then just mash through them. Now, I kept the skins on, as you can see. You could definitely take the skins off, but if you do that, I might recommend putting them in at the second stage of pressure cooking so that they don't totally disintegrate and fall down into your sauce, because that's not what we want here for this. Then what you want to do is kind of see how the consistency is. It is totally optional, but if you wanted them to be a little bit creamier, just add in a tablespoon at a time of heavy cream until they are the consistency that you like. And then, of course, the most important thing is once you get them all mixed up, you need to taste them and make sure that they taste delicious. And if they need more salt, more pepper, add more pepper. And I just like to keep these kind of on the chunky side. Another thing that's really nice to serve with Swiss steak is some pasta, but it would be a little bit difficult to do that all in one like we did this. That's why I picked mashed potatoes over pasta, just because you do need to cook the round steak long enough to tenderize it. So your pasta would be overcooked at that point, unless you added it pot towards the end. But I haven't tested that out, so I'm not even able to tell you exactly how to do that. So I would make your pasta separately. Now this would stay hot for a really long time. You could put your carrots in the juice, cover it, you know, and go ahead and make your pasta real quick if you wanted to serve it with pasta. Or the other thing you could do if you wanted it all mixed together, so you just wanted to add your pasta straight in here, there's enough thin liquid. Don't add in the tomato paste. There's enough thin liquid in there that you could add in your pasta. So if you wanted to put egg noodles in here and just use the sear saute on high, it'll only take a few minutes. You can absolutely do that, and then that's going to thicken up your sauce, okay? Because it's gonna release some starch and it's gonna absorb a lot of liquid, so you're gonna be good to go without thickening anything. I think anyway. I haven't tried it that way, but I'm pretty sure. All right, let's see what we have here. I think I'm gonna go ahead and add in a little bit more just to get a little bit thicker of a sauce. But I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off right now. I don't need to keep boiling it. And I'm gonna add in about another 2 tablespoons. So now I've added in a total of about a 1/4 cup. Again, no right, no wrong. Just do it until it looks thick enough for you. And that is looking beautiful for me. Love it, love it, love it. Another thing that some people add to this is some mushrooms. And you could certainly do that. You could do that in the beginning. It would be absolutely delicious. All right. That looks really, really good. So let me go ahead and take the steak out. I'm gonna move this up here for a second. I'm gonna take the steak out and then I'll put some of that delicious gravy over top. All right, now I'm just gonna put a touch of salt right on these carrots because remember they are not seasoned. You could also put a little butter if you wanted to, but I usually mix it in with the sauce and it's just so good. All right, so now we've got the sauce down in here and just spoon it over everything. Oh my gosh, this looks so amazing. There's still some more sauce down here, but I'm not gonna put any more in because I'm gonna go ahead and pile up my mashed potatoes right here for serving. That way you just put one thing on the table and people can dig in, and oh my gosh, so amazing. Then I just have some dried parsley and I'm just gonna sprinkle it on just to give a little bit of color to everything. Fancy it up a bit, and there you go. Swiss steak, garlic smashed potatoes, and a side of carrots. And now, of course, the only thing that ever matters is how does it taste? So let me go ahead and get my plate and we will test everything out here. Take a piece of the meat. Well, here's some of those carrots, so let's get that out. I will test one of these just to let you know how soft it is. And let me go ahead and get a piece of that out there. Now, if you're serving it, you want to do it this way, have a bowl of extra sauce on the table so that people can pour it over. Oh my gosh, so yummy. All right, let's get this out, a little bit of these potatoes. Now, this is cooked correctly. You do not need a knife. So that's gonna be the first test. Can I just use a fork? Absolutely. Oh my gosh. All right. It is so, so good. The only thing I would say is I think it needs a little bit more salt, just a touch. That is a personal preference. So if you follow the recipe, what you can do is taste the sauce. See if it's well balanced. If it seems a little flat, then just put some more salt in there like that and give it a stir. It's gonna be fine. Or you can have salt on the table if you want. So just a tad bit of salt. That did it. All right, so this is one of the carrots that was in with the sauce. Oh, that's so good. Let's see if we see a difference. There's a little difference. Yeah. These are just a little firmer. Not too much though. All right, let's dig into these potatoes. Oh my gosh. Absolutely perfect. Perfect amount of salt, perfect amount of butter, perfectly smashed, and the perfect amount of garlic taste. It's not overpowering. It's absolutely delicious. So here is a very quick and easy Swiss steak that you can make in your pressure cooker. It doesn't have to be the Ninja Foodi. It can be the Instant Pot or any electric pressure cooker. You can do it like I did and build an entire meal, or you could just do this steak alone in the bottom. If you want soft carrots that are full of flavor, because the ones in the sauce are a little bit more flavorful, throw all your carrots in, in the bottom and cook it that way. So, as always, make it yours, make it delicious, and keep it real.